It is my great pleasure today to moderate this panel discussion with these three gentlemen. My name is Priya Baraniak, and I am the Chief Commercial and Development Officer at Pluristyx. I've been very lucky in my life to have many men who have championed me, held me up, and helped me to reach where I am today, starting with my father and my brother, and some very, very good friends. And so I am thrilled to be joined today by these three gentlemen who are all very much allies for us in this field and here to share their very important perspective on allyship, women in leadership, and in cell and gene therapy. All the way at the end, we have Ben Fryer, who is the CEO of Pluristyx, my boss. We've got Jason Jones, who's the head of global business development for Cellular Origins, and Dominic Clark, who's the VP of Technical Operations for Cryoport IntegraCell. All three of these gentlemen have long careers in cell and gene therapy, but more importantly, to today's discussion, all three of them are each fathers to two daughters. They've coached their daughters' sports teams, they're raising fierce women who are strong, and they are, Jason, you even coach girls rugby now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Really resonated that you're tougher than you think.
We are.
Daily.
We absolutely are. And so let me start by asking you guys, how do you feel right now?
I don't normally get nervous in front of a crowd. I'm a little nervous. No.
I wonder how we might follow that last talk, which was unbelievable. So we'll try and follow that, but yeah, a bit nervous about that.
Well, I said it on my post as well that it was. I had to question whether I should come up here because I remembered being in the room last year, the year before, and well, it was scary walking into that room. But so certainly nervous, but speaking of the two daughters I have at home, I'm not sure which ones make me more nervous at this point in time, this room or them. And I think it's them and the challenges I deal with, but we'll talk about that later.
Wait till they're teenagers. All right, so you guys are making history as the first panel at Wyatt, and it is awkward, right, to walk into a room where you're a minority. And some of us, many of the women in this room, feel that on a daily basis in our field as well as many others. Do you feel prejudged, defensive walking into the room, and that it's self-segregating? How do you feel about an event like this and walking into this room, other than nervous?
I'll start. So yes, I'll start with that. Yes, but I also have to stop myself from thinking that same way, right? And that's part of the challenge. I think that's what we all have to do, but I have to start with myself. When I come in here and I'm already feeling like, wait, I don't belong here. I shouldn't come in here. Everybody's looking at me differently, right? And they just want me to leave. But that's the wrong way to think about it, because ultimately you should come in, and unless it says no men allowed, I didn't see that, but maybe I wasn't looking, then we want to believe that you are wanted in here and that you do belong. So that's how I'm trying to approach it.
I kind of, as you introduced what the panel was going to be about, I thought, this is okay, that's fantastic. I could talk a bit to that. And then it was only later on I realized we're an all-male panel, or as Becky says, a manel. I don't know if that'll catch her. And I thought, why? What will this be about? So I'm still sort of anticipating. I'm really interested to see what some of the questions and what some of the discussion will be. But I'm always kind of in awe in these meetings, and I've been to a couple, more so at the CGT circle, and I listen to the sharing and the support, and I think, well, I'm a bit envious, actually. That's a feeling I'd describe. Envious. I kind of think this is this supporting and understanding environment. Well, us men could do with a bit of that. it's really something to envy. So I've always tried to support these meetings and the wonderful work they do at the CGT Circle very well, because it's quite incredible to have these support networks when you need them. Maybe we'll come back to it later about broadening what allyship means, but yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
I don't feel nervous coming into the room. I think what I feel nervous about is that the previous two women who spoke both had significant experience in adversity and literally and metaphorically trailblazing. And I don't think I've done a lot of that in my life, but necessarily. There was always an example, and I think that's maybe what the difference in this room is, that I think many of the people that are in the room are trailblazers. And so what do I have to teach you? It's probably a lot more than you have to teach me. So that's what I get nervous about, because I can talk a lot, but I don't know everything.
Yeah, and we often assume that men have all the support they need, right, and everything at their disposal. It was very eye-opening for me as we had our pre-panel discussion. I learned a lot from the three of you, one of which is that a lot of what's going through your minds is exactly the same thing that's going through our minds. So, Dominic, you brought up the point that guys don't tend to sit around and talk about their feelings or talk about their insecurities. So, do men need more support? Do they need environments like this that help them unpack those feelings?
Well, yeah, I mean, at first you have to admit to it, right? But
Yeah.
It took me a long time, and I didn't know any better. I mean, just like in the last talk where, you have hubris or whatever you want to call it, I was the same way. I could fly down that mountain. I don't need to know what I'm doing. I'll figure it out. But the one thing I will say is I did need it, and I didn't know it until probably 10 years ago. I'm still part of a group that's F3. It's Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith, and it's started and it's grown pretty big, but it's really for middle-aged men or men that simply need a place to go, and you work out and you just work out together, but you get to talk. And you can say what you want because you're amongst people, and it helps to strengthen and build leadership, but build better people, especially for fathers and kids. So it's helped me a lot. It gives me something to do, and it makes me feel like I can talk about things, and other people are feeling the same way. So I would say 100%, everybody needs it. You need a group.
Yeah, I can agree more with that. I think for myself, going through a career where you're taking good steps up, and I think in your 20s and 30s, you probably do have that confidence. I think a lot of men probably have too much of that confidence, but the fall can come. So when that confidence disappears, you wonder where you are, you wonder how you got there. I don't want to simplify things too much by saying you can really discover imposter syndrome, but the lack of confidence, and I think life is a series, is professional life, personal life, of high confidence, low confidence, high confidence, low confidence. And when you're low and you think, I'm just pretending at this, what's going to happen when I get found out? To have a circle around you of friends where you can really talk about these things. First of all, admitting that vulnerability, but then everyone else said, hey, well, I had this and I felt this and this helped. It's a remarkable thing. And then for you to be able to help others through that as well. It continues for me. I find, actually, as I've gone through my late 40s, and now I'm past those, which I don't like to admit, I have more and more friends that need to sit down and actually talk about those feelings I've just described, and you think, it's crazy, you've achieved so much. How can you doubt yourself so much? And just sitting down, and unfortunately still, I think as men, we're still learning that admitting to it earlier could really help. That actually you can go through some real angst, anxiety, actual anxiety, and still try to hide it. I think it's pretty terrible. But being able to open up and share it is fantastic, and support networks professionally like this, but also personally in your life. I play touch rugby on a Thursday night now, and yeah, it's mostly touch. I still get bruises though, but nonetheless, that's great. And playing rugby is something I've always enjoyed. But what I really enjoy is at the end of it, where you go sit in the bar, and yeah, you might laugh at each other. There might be a bit of joking about each other. But then more often than not, it comes down to, what's going on in your life, and you talk through these things. And I always feel on a Thursday night going home and thinking, that's a weight off my shoulder, and I think I helped take a bit of weight off other people's shoulders. So those groups are absolutely necessary.
And do you find that the women in your life help you also unpack some of these ideas and thoughts and emotions? Ben, I know your wife and your 2 daughters have put you through the paces this last week getting ready for this.
Yeah, your original question was, do I think men, or do we think men need places of support? And I think they do. And I also think that, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be other men. I think a lot of it is this concept of what is, and I think things are changing. I think it's a little different maybe for men of our age, but this idea of, suck it up, be tough, don't whine, don't complain. And for me, a lot of that learning about how to communicate has been communicating with the women in my life. And so I grew up, my mom and dad divorced when I was like 11 or 12. So I grew up, I have 3 sisters, all younger, and both the daughters were female. Of course, my mom, my 3 sisters. I grew up in a house of women. And now, I have a wife and 2 daughters. My oldest child is a boy, or man now. But I've grown up in a world where there was like a lot of women, a lot of powerful and strong women. And being able to have discussions with them was normal. So it wasn't like, I didn't necessarily feel like I was missing something. But I recognize that is actually a big problem in every generation, especially even today with young people, like this sense of a community for women, and maybe not so much of a great community for men, especially young men. And I think it can get better as you get older, but there's a gap there.
And the goal today is really to just think about it more as just people, right? We're all dealing with the same insecurities and the same challenges and the same feelings. And to your point about an evolving society as well, we don't live in a world anymore where it's just men and women. And so to be truly inclusive, we've got to stop siloing or being very binary in how we define these things and think about these things, right? So I think today the spirit is really coming together as people and remembering that there is so much more that we have in common than we have that's uncommon, right? So let's pivot a little bit here and talk about mentorship, because mentorship is really important. Allyship's important, but mentorship is also equally important. And again, being sponsored by someone or sponsoring someone who doesn't look like you, who doesn't necessarily think like you, is so transformative, right? And in any situation where I've been the mentor, I've definitely, I think, walked away learning just as much as hopefully my mentee learned from me, right? But I was shocked. So Wyatt did mentoring last year, and we were paired up with mentees, and I had a female mentee, someone that I actually knew for a long time, interestingly enough, and it was fantastic. But I was shocked when Becky told us that a quarter of women in the Wyatt mentorship program responded that they did not want a male mentor. And that was shocking to me, because again, I've always had men in my life who have been mentors and sponsors and extremely important sounding boards and champions for me. So I was shocked by that. And we talked a lot about empowerment, right, and grace. But do you feel like there is a hesitation in you or some of your colleagues or friends in mentoring a woman? How do you feel about that? What do you think when you hear that roughly a quarter of women don't want a male mentor?
Well, I can kick off maybe, but I think it's important when you're mentoring someone, that they want you that they want you to mentor them. So I think, part of it is that sort of anticipated understanding maybe, or empathy, but it's funny, we talked about this panel a week or two back, and I then reflected and I thought, actually, I've mentored more women than men.
Good.
Maybe more than double. I should do it more. That's small numbers, but yeah, I have. And I don't know why. I mean, I've never been involved in any structured mentorship. It's always happened organically. But yeah, it does surprise me, saddens me a little bit. I think you should get diverse and different perspectives. I'm not going to prescribe a man over a woman or a woman over a man. I think it depends on who you are and what the situation is. But certainly don't close the doors to that. That's what I would say. So I'm a little sad that it's so much that way. But really, if you want a mentor, if you need a mentor, it should be the right person for you.
Ben, Dominic?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the number, but it makes me sad, not because it's a real number, but it makes me sad for why it's a real number. I remember a girlfriend I had in college. She is an organic chemist, and she was doing an organic chemistry internship in a SUNY university. And the professor, who was an older professor, man, he invited her to present her abstract that she had done over the summer. And she shows up, and it's just her and him. And we were dating at the time, so she called me, and she's like, he hit on me the whole time. And I hear her laughing in the crowd, but everybody understands how that happens. But that's, if I'm a young woman, and I want to understand, do I want to be in a safe space, or do I want to take that risk? I mean, I can understand where the 25% comes from. But if somebody asks me, would I have a problem with mentoring anybody? No. My expectation is that, you're trying to show people about the technical trade, and that there's stories, and everybody has their own story. And I don't know what it's like to be a young woman in science. I just know what it's like to try to break into science. And a little story about me, I have a bachelor's degree in history. So I went into a PhD in pharmacology with a bachelor's degree in history. So it was a pretty hard pivot. The previous story about it's never a line, it's always like these weird changes. So I recognize people come to things and they don't necessarily intend to go where they're going to go. And so I feel like I could be a great mentor in that way. But I don't blame anybody for the expectation that they want a mentor who is more like them, that they could learn some life lessons about how to be that person as they grow up.
Well, I guess I would agree. I'm not surprised. I would ask, has it been asked the opposite way? And what are the results? I would think that the number would be similar in a way.
Okay.
That's what I would expect, is that if you put it to men, would they also say that they want men or women? And I think they're going to get certain people that just feel more comfortable. It's the way it is, unfortunately. But for me, I have less experience mentoring people. I've done it, but part of my challenge is I just didn't put myself out there for a while. One, because I'm like, what's anybody gonna learn from me? So I had to learn that for myself first, right? I do it now, and I've been doing it every year through ISCT, and I haven't done it through ATW, but I've had both, right? So it's been pretty even, and I think my biggest challenge is I was trying to figure out, I didn't want to call myself dumb. Some might call me that, I'm sure, in this room, but a naive idiot in a sense, right? Because I don't necessarily think about it. Basically what you were saying is, I'm going in there and I'm having a conversation, but I'm focused on, they're here to learn about work and life experience that way, but I'm not paying attention to some of the other things that I could be asking them questions about or being in tune with. So I'm a little slow in getting in tune with some of the aspects of, being somebody different, right? And then realizing that there are challenges. And for me, that took me a really long time to pay attention. In the last talk, I found myself for the longest time just looking down and focusing on me. And now lately I've had the opportunity to not look down, I'm looking up, and now I can appreciate that. How can I help? And asking the right questions. But I think for everybody it takes more time, and I think I'll speak for men, it probably takes us longer, the majority of us takes us longer to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, I find a lot of times when you're mentoring, right, you don't end up talking about work or the professional pieces of it, because I think in a field like this where you have a lot of type A personalities, a lot of brilliant minds, that's not where the support's needed. The support is really needed on a much more personal level. And sometimes it almost feels like a therapy session, but it's so important that we have those conversations and that we have them as people, as men, as women, to understand these different perspectives, right? You may have seen that Forbes Business just said in the last year, women have left the workforce in unprecedented numbers, and it's not because women don't want to work. It's because we don't have the support systems in place to help us stay in the workforce, right? And so it's very important that we have these conversations so that we can educate each other on these and figure out how we support each other. So let me ask you, what's something that women can do to better support men? We always talk about men supporting women, but what could we do to better support you, to make it easier to mentor women or to champion women in this post-Me Too era as well, right? Where do you feel like sometimes anything you say could be TNT and misconstrued? As middle-aged white men, I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Are you labeling us?
I am.
Hang on, let me think about that before I answer it.
I told you we were going to get real.
Well, the story that I told Priya, like when I was at, I think, meeting on the Mesa a couple of years ago, and my daughters and my wife, they love to get skirts and dresses that have pockets.
I mean, skirts and dresses that have pockets are amazing, right? Let's be real.
And I saw a young woman dressed really sharply, like just the fit was like perfect, and everything was like matching, and there was a pleated skirt. And I always get, when my kids were little, I would get skirts and dresses mixed up, and they'd be like, no, it's a skirt, and I'd be like, oh, sorry. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's a pleated skirt with pockets, because she had her hands in her pockets. And I thought, oh, I really, really would like to compliment that, because it's really cool. Like, I've never seen anything like that. But the reality is that I can't.
And you did.
And I don't think I should. And I don't think I should be able to, or maybe in the ideal world I should be able to, but that just wasn't the place, because it's never going to come off very well. So I think about that, and I would, so if I had a wish where I wish the world could go, it would be that I could make that compliment and not have it be creepy and not have to worry about it. But I also don't think that I'm not losing anything by not being able to make that compliment. So.
I'm just going to use that, though, because I think I might have said this when we were talking about how, I mean, that feels like we should be able to talk about things. You should be able to compliment somebody like that. So how does this group take that? How can we make comments that are generally supposed to be, constructive or positive, kind, but not have Ben feel like that, or others feel like that? Are we automatically judged by saying that? Is that how it comes off, right? You could be, based on a small percentage, maybe it's larger than I would say, of men who have a certain perception. Is that now how the rest of us automatically get judged in this environment? So could Ben ever just say that to somebody or me?
Yeah.
Yep, that's good feedback.
So Nicola's feedback was that a good bar is to ask yourself, is it serving you more or the person that you're giving that feedback or that compliment to? And run it through that kind of pressure test. Any other thoughts from the audience? Yes? Hang on. Here comes Becky.
Yeah, you had mentioned about men mentoring women. What about women mentoring men?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a good segue for us to instill our thinking, our values,
Yep.
how we approach, like, they always say women are from men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and that we have a different perspective of life. We multitask more, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering, maybe that could be another way of, I wouldn't like to say turning the tables on, but I think it's about that time, because it's always been, okay, how can men support? How can men, I think we should do the other way around. And then maybe it's a way of also proving ourselves that we can do it. And one more comment I just want to make. I was very struck with the word nervousness at the beginning. Why are you nervous? Is my question. Why is there a need to be nervous? Sorry.
Well, I'm not nervous anymore. No, but I think generally for me, anytime I'm up in front of a crowd and people, it doesn't matter, I start off nervous. And I think hopefully I'm not the only one that does that.
I was nervous coming up here.
The first part though, I'm trying to remember, I had a train of thought and of course it's gone.
Well, maybe
Go for it.
I'll pick it up while you
Yeah.
do. But thank you for bringing that up, because the conversation kind of went away from it a little bit. How would you change mentoring? What would you look to make different? And I would fully agree. I think women should mentor men. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot to be learned. I think a lot of men are maybe close to that perspective. Unless, like you said, unless you have strong women in your family where you've been able to lean on that through your life, then it's not the natural thing to do. And we talked about redefining allyship, and my point through all of this and in all of our conversations so far has been, it needn't be a man being an ally to a woman. What about a woman allying to a man? Or maybe we take gender out of this altogether. Everybody needs support, one of the points I was trying to make, and that can come in whatever form. So please, as women, do mentor men, whether they be young, starting out in their careers, or a little later on. I think it would make the power of good, actually.
You reminded me, so thanks. I'm glad we could do that. But
Welcome.
I completely agree with that. I think you also have to, as we talked a little bit, we need help, right? We need help acknowledging that. So be a little pushy, in a sense. Help us understand that we need the help and we need that perspective. But I would say for me, I'm lucky enough to be, surrounded by multiple people in here, multiple females that have shaped my career and my ability to sit here today. And I'm super thankful for every one of those conversations. I wouldn't call it necessarily mentoring, it's just everyday life.
Right.
And being surrounded by that has really helped me.
Maybe one more thing to add on that as well. I think I would also ask the men to be open to that as well. You could be surprised what you can learn. And Priya mentioned I coach an under-14s girls rugby team. And I thought, well, I coach and mentor these girls. It certainly isn't just about rugby, I can tell you. I hear everything, and I get asked all kinds of questions, and I try and guide them in the best way that I can. But actually, in some ways, they're coaching me. I've been doing this 3 years now. I've never learned so much. I've never learned so much about neurodiversity, about confidence, building confidence, which really is my job there, to try and build the confidence of these girls and see how tough they can be. And just about people being people and the struggles they go through and how just a supportive word can help. So be open to it. Be open to mentoring, and you'll find you'll learn a lot, I would say.
So with people being people, right, let's talk about diversity in leadership and on teams and the importance of that and how we ensure that. I'll wade into some dangerous territory here and say that, when I'm in a board level or a C-level position, I don't want that because I'm a woman, and I don't want it because I'm a woman of color. I want it because I worked really damn hard to get where I am, and I put in the work, right? And I don't want to check a couple boxes for anyone. How many women here want a position, or how many people here want a position because you check a box for someone versus because you feel like you really earned that seat at the table? Anyone? Right, so don't be rejected because of that, but also diversity in thought and diversity in perspective does enrich teams, right? So how do we stack the funnel in cell and gene therapy in leadership with those diverse perspectives, making sure that we are creating teams that have those unique perspectives and divergent senses of expertise and knowledge and history without making it seem like we're doing this simply to check some boxes. So Ben, you have a C-suite that's 50% female.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it takes a long time. Not for us, but I think it's like a sports metaphor. Nothing at the professional level occurs without it occurring at the entry-level children's level. And so, if you think about representation of any marginalized or minority population, you have to have representation in elementary school. You have to have that representation at the university level. You have to have that representation in graduate school and in faculty levels and in professional levels. And then that quality literally rises and metaphorically rises to the top. And so if you don't have that quality, then there is the perception, well, that person that was selected because of what they look like or their name or their gender or whatever. And so that is the unfairness of it, because usually that person got to that spot because they worked extra hard, because they had to work hard. And so the moniker is actually super detrimental, because it's like you earned it, and everybody assumes you got it because you didn't earn it, which is like the double whammy of it all.
Yep.
When I started grad school, there was I went to Penn for pharmacology. There was, I think, 7 or 8 people on the pharmacology program my year, 1 woman. There's no way to build that group into tomorrow's leaders and then expect it to be 50-50. So I think it starts from the beginning. And by the way, my first mentor, my postdoctoral mentor is a woman, and I chose her because she's a woman. So, but there weren't many.
Yep. So we have a couple minutes left. I want each of these gentlemen to just kind of give us their closing thoughts, but I would like to open the floor maybe for 1 or 2 questions in the time that we have. Looks like we've got one back there.
Hi, and first, I think you all look really nice up there, so there's the compliment. But
I don't know if I should feel.
as it was really interesting that you all have girls as daughters, and I was wondering what you've learned having girls as daughters and bringing up in the world today, and how you would pass that kind of message on to your male colleagues, and what would that message be out of that?
It's a really good question, and I think about it, I nearly said every minute of every day, but whenever I'm thinking about my daughters, I think about this. I think it's two ways, okay? I think, I don't know if I can do it, but I think, I think fathers and daughters probably go about things in a way where we need to be able to change the world so that your children, your daughters, have every opportunity that they can have. And I try and do that in small things here, there, and everywhere. But it also goes the other way as well, and this is where I can have an effect, which is to bring my daughters up to know that they could do whatever they want. They have to work hard at it. They have to believe in themselves, but they just fundamentally have to know that they can do whatever they put their minds to. That there's nothing to hold them back because they're girls, and it'll be too hard, and I can't do that because it's only boys that do that, and I can't do that because women don't do that in a career. I think we're there. I think they believe it, but the proof will be in the pudding. But it's going to be two ways. Right? Do everything I can to bring diversity to the small bit of the world that I exist in, but also I want my daughters to understand they can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I had this conversation, well, it's been happening multiple times now. I got two tweens that are, feeling like they're 18. And half the time I'm just like, go talk to your mother. I don't know about this, but my daughter brought up, makeup. And she's like, I want to go get my nails done, and I need to get some new makeup. I'm like, what do you need all this makeup for? You're 12. She's like, well, I need to look good, and it makes me look better, and I said, but wait, that's the wrong way to think about this. One, I'm not going to pay for it, and you're going to have to earn it, but more importantly, put the makeup on because you want to, because it brings some joy to you, not because you feel like you have to do this, because I can't support that. You're already beautiful as you are, remember that, and then let that speak for yourself. And I would just continue to tell them that regardless of what it is. And I don't treat them whether they're a girl or a boy at this point in time. I treat them as a person. It's the same thing I do with my teams at work. We're people. Whenever somebody says we need more manpower, I'm like, we need people power. Let's build that in. It's not man or woman, it's just be you and go out there and do the best that you can do. So my little struggles with makeup.
We have another question real quick. Do we have time for it?
We literally have a minute.
Okay. So while Becky's making her way over there, we are going to continue this conversation at the round table in a little bit, and all three of these gentlemen will be joining me there. But it's really my hope that we've just scratched the surface. I mean, we could go on and on and on, and these three individuals are amazing people, so I invite you to join us here at the round table, but also keep this conversation and this dialogue going through the year and beyond, right? This is just a starting point.
So you mentioned middle-aged men. I'm sorry, I have to repeat it. But what about the younger men nowadays? I see the difference, but I wonder if you've seen it too. Like my son is 40, and he has one daughter, and it's completely different. So I wonder if you've seen that too.
Ben, you have a son who's in his late 20s, right?
Yeah, so my son will be 29 tomorrow. And I think so my wife runs a daycare, and so she always has children around her who are somewhere between 2 and 5 years old. And therefore she always has parents of a certain age. And it's been interesting to watch the parents that are in their, let's say, mid-20s to early 40s for the last 25 years, and the change that's occurred. And I do think that the parents, dads, fathers, are much more involved and reasonable than they were. And so I think you're absolutely right. I was talking to one of our colleagues, and she's like, oh, that's not a problem anymore. I was preparing for this panel, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. So I think that society is changing. I think you're getting a view of a very specific age and experience, and I do hope it gets better. And I would, there was a question around, like, I think the previous question was around how do you deal with colleagues based upon your experience with your daughters. And I think the one thing you learn from your children is that they will always do what you do, or most of the time they'll do what you do. They won't do what you tell them. You can't tell people how to behave. You have to show them, and then live it every day. And so I think that's the lesson I got from my daughters and raising them, raising my son, is that People will do what you do. So if you want to make the change, you literally have to be the change.
If I may just take 3 seconds more, but I completely agree. I think it's better. I talk to young guys these days, different outlook, but it's not 100%. And I think there's some danger in thinking, well, it's problem solved, right? Yeah, all young guys are a lot more open-minded these days and enlightened to diversity and inclusion. I don't think the job's quite done because, as you say, their parents are middle-aged, their fathers are middle-aged, and they do take a lot of that. So again, we've got even more of a responsibility as parents to show sons and daughters actually the way the world should be. So just wanted to add that.
Well, thank you everyone for creating a safe space today. Let's continue doing that. Thank you to these 3 gentlemen for trusting my crazy idea of putting them up here and being willing to follow me up here and take this chance. I think these are really important and wonderful conversations, and I look forward to all of us continuing them throughout today and beyond. So let's give a hand to our panelists.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.